Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the technique Raking Mace and how to relate it to other parts of the American Kenpo system. Now keep in mind that this is not a full comprehensive list or family groupings for that matter, but rather different avenues in which you can take to explore and start understanding the American Kenpo system a little bit better. So let's start out with ratcheting. So remember, ratcheting is anytime we're using a pivot point so that we can wrap around it to deliver a follow-up maneuver with the opposite end of the weapon. So let's take a look at Raking Mace. We're doing it towards the end of the technique with the right hand on the high zone. So let's start relating this by moving the zone to the mid zone and do something like gathering clasp, where we are now doing the ratchet under the arms. But if you notice, they're both done on a horizontal. So can we do this on a vertical? Well, yes, we can move this to something like Heavenly Ascent, where we're now doing the ratchet on a vertical. But the interesting thing to keep in mind here is that we've also reversed it. So rather than going from a long to a short, we are going from a short to a long. So now that we did that, let's look at it using the foot and do something like a fallen cross, where we're, again, going back to the horizontal, but sticking from that short to long by going knee to foot. So now that we picked that up, let's relate it to long three. So the interesting thing to keep in mind here is that typically, or sometimes in the forms, the techniques are done different than the way that they would be done in self-defense. So if we take a look at blinding sacrifice in long three, we're getting to the part where we are doing the doubles to pick up the ratchets with doubles. But keep in mind, if you were actually doing the self-defense technique, this is where we would do the single, doing the sandwich. So now that we related it through the ratchets, let's relate it through a different concept, purposeful versus compelled. Remember, there are two reasons why we do things. We are forced to, compelled, or we want to, purposeful. So if we take a look at the attack, we're dealing with an applied minor from the front, in this case where they're pulling us in, where we are compelled to step forward to start our technique. But the interesting thing to notice about the attack is that even though the ideal attack is pulling us in, this could have worked just off a grab, where he's not pulling us, and we choose and be purposeful in stepping in. Now, up to this point, we're going on the low, pinning with the left. Could we do the opposite and go on the high zone? Well, yeah, again, we can do something like Mace of Aggression. And again, this could be done compelled, where he's pulling us in, so we're forced to step forward, or where he's static and he's not doing anything, he's neutral, he's just grabbing us, and we can choose and be purposeful in stepping forward. The interesting thing to keep in mind is that we are pinning with our left and taking the high zone rather than the low zone. But what if he now decides to push rather than pull? Well, again, this can give us something where we're compelled to step back and do something like a twin kimono, or again, if he's neutral, I can purposefully choose to step back and do twin kimono. So let's relate it to one more. And in this case, using the purposeful and compelled, but slightly different. So dealing with the same attack, we're now going to be choosing to not do a defense. Remember, this is a minor. What does minor mean? It means it's not a real threat or it's not really causing any damage to us. So we can choose, by being purposeful, to eliminate our defense, or rather, delay it. In this case, this would give us something like destructive twins, where we would start doing offense, taking both the high zone and the low zone, just like we did with Raking and Mace of Aggression, but now we're doing them together with destructive twins before getting our defense. So the way we just related Raking Mace to other parts of the American Kenpo system was through purposeful and compelled, and through our ratcheting. We hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. Thank you very much.